No self-respecting black person wants you to just take a already established character and then turn them into a black character. All right, here we go. The Little Mermaid trailer just reached an unfortunate milestone. A vocal and toxic minority of the Disney fandom is making it clear that the live action adaptation of The Little Mermaid won't be a part of their world anytime soon. Pun intended there. Then we have Haley Bailey, excellent singer. Now she's going to be Ariel, I believe, in The Little Mermaid, and people are having issues with this. Considering all of the political issues that have been going back and forth for almost a century now, you'd be lying to yourself if these things weren't always in the background of just about everything. Growing up, watching comic books, playing video games, and of course being African American, obviously you see many people that you might be interested in or admire that'll be a different ethnicity. For the most part, I took it more so an interest in the character of the the person I admired or that I was watching, like Luke Skywalker. It wasn't like that I needed to see a black Jedi, but I was more interested in the character, because if the character wasn't interesting, it wouldn't matter what ethnicity that they were. However, I could not help but notice growing up that in a galaxy far, far away, there's only one or two black people. Like it's blatantly obvious. Majority of the humanoid population that you see is, especially early on in the Star Wars series, ethnically white or Caucasian. You couldn't help but see that. But it's still, I mean, if the characters were bad, it didn't matter. Now, what has happened due to the woke politics versus legitimate reasons, representation is a legitimate thing. It doesn't mean that you have to force an ethnicity in a story. I think no self-respecting African American wants anyone to forcibly insert a black character into a movie or a comic book just so that they can say that there's a black character there. Because if the character sucks, I mean, what was the point? What most people, self-respecting African Americans, actually want are just respectable characters. That's it. And decent representation. But it doesn't have to be in every single thing. And in fact, I will argue and say that most people would prefer, myself included, just make your own stuff. I mean, instead of telling the story of, Little Mermaid again with a black character, just do a whole nother black character and make it a new story. Ethnicity does play a role in these things, and people pretend like they don't. If they would have just found another white or Caucasian female to play Ariel, you wouldn't hear anything. The movie could come and go and suck, and nobody would say anything. But there is an issue here that nobody wants to acknowledge. And this kind of leads me into this question that I had after looking at some of the backlash and the complaints and stuff like that. These so-called iconic characters like Ariel, who traditionally, were created based off their ethnicity being white, would they have garnered the same amount of attention if they were not? Would the same people who care about the character and story of Ariel, would they have cared about that character if back then they would have made her black or Asian? I think that's a critical question. And you can use this question anywhere for any character in any movie. And then that brings me to another question. As a African American, my main interest was in the character of a character. So for example, Luke Skywalker, even though he was white, I was more interested in the character. Darth Vader, more interested in the character. So if you would have interchanged the character, if you were to go back and change the character to a different ethnicity, I don't think it would have made any difference, as long as the story was good. But what I do think would have been a difference is the acceptability of it. I do not think Star Wars would have been successful if George Lucas would have casted all of his characters as black. I just don't think that would have been the case. And there's many factors there. Um, Considering the majority population is Caucasian, you're trying to appeal to a particular audience, and you assume the audience, because you assume that the people at that time were only interested in that type of thing were white, which was far from the truth. That they would cast the majority of the people of that ethnicity as white. But I do not believe that many of these movies that have such a classic fan base, if some of the main characters were a different ethnicity, I do not think it would have had the same pool. Now, you can make the argument for the actor and the ability to act, but I don't think that Ariel, if it would have been made in the time that it was made and it would have been a different ethnicity, I do not think that the interest would have been there. What people need to understand here is that basically a company that is notoriously known for destroying popular franchises has got together and made a cash grab at the expense of current social political issues. That's it. That being said, at the end of the day, these are the ramblings of a madman.